Hello and welcome to the second edition of Beyond the Pound, presented by the Mount Bridges Bulldogs and sponsored by our good friends at Mount Bridges Ford. I'm your host, Nick Sakellis. With me today on the other side of the screen is a former Bulldog who was part of the 2001 OHA Junior D League and OHA Cup Championship team. He also runs and hosts his own podcast, A Chip Off the Old Clark, whose links can be found in the description below. Welcome to Beyond the Pound, Joey Elwes-Clark. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me here today, Joey.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Nick. It's a little bit weird being on the other side of the questions, but we'll see how this goes.
We'll see how it goes. If you have any questions for me, you're more than welcome to fire away. Not a problem. Let's go down memory lane first for a moment and chat about your start in hockey. How were you introduced to the game? Who introduced you to the game? And where did you play your minor hockey growing up?
Well, growing up, or even before I was born, actually, the jersey behind me was my father's, who did also play for the Bulldogs. Wore number 4. They're actually, if you go out to the rink, they're the first banner on the left from 1984. I was born in 85, and from the time I can remember, I always wanted to be a Bulldog. I'm pretty sure there's a picture kicking around in an old photo album. I'm 2-3 years old wearing that jersey, and it's hanging on the floor. But yeah, I played for Mount Bridges for the Cougars all the way up. Pee wee age, I went and played a year up, played Bantam, because I've always kind of been a big kid, so it kind of fit in with that group. I played baseball in Delaware, and the coach was coaching in Bantam, said, well, why don't you come up? So I did that. And then the year before my OHL draft year and the year of, I went up and played for the Here in Perth Lakers. Wore number 4 there. After about December, January, we were out talking to the coaching staff and the GM, Randy Campbell, and the like, that Mount Bridges kid, want to get some more ice time. Can I come out for practice? It's my draft year. I want to get as much exposure as possible. And he said, well, we can't play as a defenseman, which you've played your entire life. He's like, what do you think about playing forward? And I went, good luck. Like, yeah, I'm mobile, but I'm not a forward. He goes, right. Well, come out to practice. We'll sign you to an affiliate card, and we'll see what happens. All right. So went out playing against guys that are in their 20 and 21 years old, 19 years old, a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot faster. And it was the same thing I had said with the podcast I had with Andy, is you go from being in a small center and being the guy to being just another guy.
Right.
And it was a swift kick in the ass real quick, going, if I want to get better and I want to get on the ice, I got to put in that work. So about week or two before the playoff push, they put 3 14-year-olds together as the fourth line. I think it was Mitchell, Adam Cole, Mark Johnson, and myself. Mark and Adam were about 5'8", 5'9", and here's this tall, skinny kid, about 170 pounds, soaking wet, playing on right wing, going up against guys that are 6'4", 220.
Oh my goodness.
And they, I guess, liked what they saw, because up until went through Exeter, went through Thamesford in 7, went through, I want to say Mitchell, I could be wrong on that, for the conference finals, and Seaforth, because they had a team at that point. Yep. And we played all the way through. It wasn't until we went up against Wellesley that they started putting some of the more senior guys and the bigger guys, because Wellesley's a bunch of farm boys. So so we won the OHA championship. Was a hell of a party on the way back from Wellesley, because we won in Wellesley. And then from there, they used an affiliate card with me again to play midget. Played with Adam. Adam and I both went back on a affiliate card, and we lit up the OMHA league all year. And then still played with the Bulldogs regularly, excuse me. And from there, I just put in the work, turned into a mainstay, and then a veteran, and then from there, finished off my career with the Bulldogs in my overage year.
That's awesome. And you mentioned and you mentioned a few things that I want to get back to because that's an awesome hockey story. The first question that I do have is about the jersey behind you because I see it says Mount Bridges Bulldogs, but it looks as though that there's a hockey puck and a target with no depiction of a bulldog. Could you tell me as to how and why that is?
Yeah, my father obviously told me the story because I wasn't even a thought when he played. But I guess when the Bulldogs were founded, they were founded by the guy who ran Mack Truck. So of course the Bulldogs simple transition. Well, then the ownership kind of changed into the guy who ran the dealership for Mercury Cougar, and that's where kind of the Cougars spawned from. And I guess there was a disagreement between Mack Truck and the Mercury guy, and he decided, well, screw them. I'm not putting a Bulldog on the jersey, even though the team name is the Bulldogs. So he switched it to the Targets, which was short lived, obviously, because it was only a couple of years that they went with the Targets, and
Right.
now they're obviously Bulldogs.
Oh my goodness. And what year did your dad wear that jersey? Was it during the 1984 year when the Bulldogs did win the
Yep.
OHAs?
Yeah,
Oh,
they that was the jersey. That was his last year that he played, and in the old picture that my mom has somewhere, you can tell that the jersey was faded and everything else. Well, my sister actually went into I want to say Source for Sports to see if she could get it redone, and that's why it looks as good as it does now.
that's awesome. It looks incredible.
Mhm.
Um, and it's an incredible story. It's really it's just odd. But so you mentioned that you were drafted into the OHL, and this was through the 2001 OHL draft, and you were drafted in the 12th round by the Toronto St. Mike's Majors. Was the OHL ever something that was in your mind when you were playing with the Cougars and the Bulldogs?
Well, like every other kid growing up, and probably yourself, like you're playing in the backyard or playing out on the road with your friends, you're always pretending that you're in the NHL. That was the main focus, the main goal. And, when at my Bantam year, when I went up to play AAA, that was the goal. The team I actually played for in here in Perth, we were ranked in the top four pretty much all year for Ontario, and the amount of players that I played either with or against, the amount of professional careers, collegiate careers that they had was just amazing. Played against the likes of Corey Perry, Anthony Stewart, Brad Richards, Jeff Carter, Curtis Calling, who I played with for the Lakers, is now one of the coaches at Colgate in the States, and on, like the amount of even junior B players that came through that league. I was actually, we were talking before that, my fiance was asking a bit about it, and we went through the big nickel tournament, and I was going through all the game sheets, and we lost to Anthony Stewart's York Canadians, North York Canadians, 6-0. And I didn't even realize Brett Burns played on that team. And it was, holy shit, no wonder we lost.
Yeah, when you're going up against former pros like that, that's
Mm-hmm.
wow, that's incredible. You don't even know who you play sometimes. You're playing so much hockey during
Oh,
your minor hockey days. That's amazing. Did you ever make it to Toronto to go to a camp for the majors?
the first year, the rules, I'm not sure about the rules now, but the first two rounds, first two picks were the only ones allowed to play the year following their draft year. So they brought us all in. They gave us the whole dry land training, all the testing, the fitness testing, and then we had kind of a rookie scrimmage the first year. And then the second year, I went down, tried out. My defense partner in that was Mark Popovic, who had a bit of a stint in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Curtis Foster was there, Tim Brent, just to name a few guys that were there. But I got pulled into the room at the end of the training camp, and they said, "You're the eighth defenseman."
Mm-hmm.
Said, you can play for the Buzzers, which was their affiliate at the time, or you can go back and play junior B, junior D, whatever, and we'll kind of keep an eye. Obviously made a mistake, decided to go back. I should have stayed up, but went to go play for Sarnia. They signed their import cards, and then at that point I went, let's go win a championship with Mount Bridges.
Right on. Yeah, that was going to be my next question after the chat with Toronto. Did you ever think, okay, well, I'll just go down and play? I think what would now be called Tier 2 Junior A for the Buzzers, and or I guess Junior B in what is now the GOJHL. Did that ever cross your mind, or was it just, quite simply, I'm just going to go back and play with my hometown team?
Well, I was told by Len Press, who was, when I was 14, 15, was the coach of the Rockets. He moved on to, I think it was the Sarnia Blast at that point. I can't quite remember, but he said if I came back from the St. Mike's camp that he'd sign me. Okay, great. So I kind of already had that in the back of my head going up there. And that's what I had told Dave Cameron, who was the coach, that, I was told Len Press got a spot for me. I'll go back and play in Sarnia, probably bill it out there, get used to it, be a little closer to home, but still far enough away to learn the experience and then come back.
Right.
And got a hold of Len. Well, apparently this is all conjecture and, what he told me, because I know the politics of the game now that I didn't know that. But that his assistant GM signed all 6 import cards.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Was okay, so you've got no spot for me.
Right, exactly.
And at that point it was, well, I'll go back and play in Mount Bridges. It's 17 years old. I know I got a spot. I know I'm going to get the ice time and then move forward from there.
Right. Okay, good. It's good to go just get that background information there. And Mount Bridge has always been extremely fortunate, as you alluded to in our pre-talk, just about how good minor hockey is in Mount Bridges. It's a very tight-knit community on and off the ice, which bodes well. Growing up in Mount Bridges, did you ever catch a Bulldogs game? Was it ever in your mind that, after I'm done with the Cougars, other junior hockey aside, of course, that I'm going to be a Bulldog?
Usually on Saturday nights, like my dad drove truck out west, so a lot of times he was gone. But any Saturday night, my grandparents would stop by and go, "Well, we're going to the Bulldogs game. Do you want to go?" And it was not even a question. All right, well, let me grab my stuff. It wasn't even ask mom. It was, "Oh, grandpa, we're going to the game." So yeah, like even from a young age, I was lucky enough when I was, I want to say 10 or 11, that our practices were right before Bulldogs practice. My cousin played for the Bulldogs in the mid 90s, just before I was old enough to start playing. So it was always kind of a mainstay in the community and in my household. If it wasn't watching the Canadians, which my mom's a huge fan of,
Right.
it was going, on Saturday nights, it was going to the Dogs games.
Right. Now, you also mentioned in the pre-show that you were the number 4, even when you were playing minor hockey and through your time with the Dogs, the very same number that your dad wore. Was that always something that you had an eye on if you ever played for the Mount Bridges Bulldogs, that you'd wear that very same number? And did he ever recall any stories of playing for the Bulldogs when you were growing up?
You mean him telling me some of his stories, or just?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with the number 4, he always had it around the house. Saw the jersey, saw the pictures. So when I started playing at 14, somebody else was already wearing number 4, Bill Gransma. So it was, well, I guess I can't have that. So I took half of that, because I was half of the player that my father was playing back then. So I took number 2.
Right.
It wasn't until I was 16 that I actually got number 4, and then wore it right through to the end. But some of the stories that my father told me was, going up to Grand Valley, the bus trips, the alcohol that was or wasn't consumed to and from Belmont, to and from Lambeth, to and from all the different places that they went, and the camaraderie that they all had together when they played.
Right. Interesting. And do you think, I don't know if you follow junior hockey now, or the junior C's or anything like that, but a lot of teams nowadays don't really have that sort of camaraderie, or that team bus, or that story from that team bus ride. Do you think that, might be a little bit lost? Do you think that's the natural process that junior hockey players should have, and should experience, as they maybe transition from minor hockey to junior, or even as they go through their junior hockey ranks?
Yeah, for sure. Like when it came to the bus trip up to Mitchell, or the bus trip up to Exeter, which was really and truly for all of us a waste of time, because a lot of guys played in London. They, drive all the way to Mount Bridges, and a lot of the veterans would sit there and eat spaghetti dinners at my parents' house before we walked down to the rink and jump on the bus and head out. But it was those trips up, those trips back that made the playoff runs that much easier. Where where everybody stands, that you've got 3-4 months to get that rookie on the same page as the vets, where, the start of the year, any bus trip, the rookie sat in the front with the coaches. And then as the year wore on, it was, get back here, come sit with us,
right,
get them on the same page. And then, when you lean down the bench and yell at a kid for, you got to block that shot, it's not well, screw you, I'm not doing it.
right.
These older guys are going through the wall for us. We need to do the same for them and for the crest, for the jersey, right?
Right. So it's interesting to hear that, because when you think of chemistry and you think of bonds in a dressing room, really a lot of those bonds and that chemistry isn't formed on the ice in practice, doing a bunch of drills with each other. It's the camaraderie that you gain off of the ice in the buses, or at the restaurants, or maybe, I don't know if you guys would head downtown to London for a good time here or there, but that's where a hockey team really does kind of gel and come together. Hockey almost becomes secondary at that point, really.
Yeah. Again, when we got older, and I alluded to it in the Andy interview that I had with him, was, we'd all sit there, play the game, get finished up, have a shower, get ready. And, there was a kid that was 16, 17 years old that was sitting there with my ID walking through the door at Jack or Jim Bob's or the Brass Door or wherever it was that we ended up that night. So yeah, the after the game stuff was just as important, if not more, than the on the ice, the practices, the games, the coaches meetings, all that stuff.
And let's cross over now to that OHA championship year, 2000-2001 season. And from what I gathered, it's really interesting. The Bulldogs weren't even the top club in the YET Conference Thomas division that year, as the Port Stanley Lakers and Thamesford Trojans were above the Bulldogs in the final standings. But we all know playoffs take a completely different season of their own. You would go through teams like Exeter, Thamesford, Seaforth, as you alluded to, on your way to playing the Wellesley Applejacks in the OHA final. Can you handle us through that entire season and that playoff run where you would eventually become an OHA champion?
Well, as I said, it wasn't until, December, January that I got asked to come join the team. But of course, playing AAA, we played through the week. There wasn't very often that, other than a tournament, we'd be playing on a Saturday night. So I'd swing down and watch the game because I knew some of the guys that had played, and they were always a tough team. They had the skilled players, but it was the grit and determination and the tenacity that they had. And well, a little different than today's game, but the amount of fights that happened every single game was just crazy. And I never even thought of, getting into that many fights at 13, 14 years old. And then, joined the team and got to practice. We had dry land training twice a week. We had practice twice a week. And then the 3 games on the weekend. And in between every drill, we did boards. And of course, all us 3 rookies sitting down at the end, just soaked, exhausted, because, playing minor hockey, you don't get that.
Right.
And finally, one of us looked at I can't remember who said it. It might even have been me, looked at one of the vets and go, why in the fuck are we doing this? And he goes, wait till February.
Okay.
Wait till March. See if you want to ask me that question again. And we went, okay.
Yeah.
19, 20-year-old guy talking to a 14-year-old, he talked to us great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got in against Exeter. Nobody thought we were going to do anything. Our coach looked at us and said, all the work you've put in is going to be for this moment. We're not supposed to win. They're supposed to wipe the floor with us. Show them they're wrong. And it was just a war. I hate using that word because obviously it's nowhere near what, the soldiers actually do across, but it's the closest thing to it.
Right.
I had played AAA with a guy from Exeter called, his name was Jason Stuckless. Well, his brother played. And our fourth line was out. Somebody ran our goaltender. We all matched up. It was almost a line brawl. And luckily I grabbed him and he looked at me and he goes, I'm not going to whoop your ass because you're my brother's age. Because if it wasn't for the fact that I played with his younger brother, it was, I'm the same height as you.
Yeah,
like
right.
17, 18 years old. But yeah, it was a rough and tumble series. We ended up beating them. And then we went up against Thamesford, which, we talked before was always a pain in the ass team to play. Dick Howard had his team going, and there was nobody that was going to stop him that year. So we thought, and we took him to 7, and we won on a fluke goal. Just, like you see in all the Stanley Cup races and everything else, it's not the pretty goal that gets you through. It's that off the skate, off the back, off the ass. And that's wasn't even, actually, I think it was our tough guy that it went off of, who was kind of like us and, only had 2 or 3 shifts a game. And he just happened to be out there because our first line was tired and they threw him out and he scored the winning goal. And from there, we moved on to play Seaforth. And I'm pretty sure that was a 5-game series.
Mm-hmm.
The funniest part of that series was Nate, which was Mark's brother, was on the ice or on the bench beside me. And this guy was just sticking everybody, running everybody. And Randy looked at him and goes, go deal with them. And that's all he had to say. He knew what was coming. And he looked and he goes, well, here's to hoping this kid's got good dental plan. And I'm just shaking my head. Goes out on the ice, lines up beside him. You see him kind of chatting back and forth. They both nodded. Puck didn't even hit the ice. They both dropped their gloves, grabbed a hold of his helmet, ripped it off, took one punch, and then handed him to the linesman. Just knocked him out cold. And all 3 of us rookies went, what the hell just happened? And then, awesome. Yeah, like Wellesley, it came down to, at that point, some of the older guys were coming back from injury, and we sat up in the stands, but it wasn't, stay at home. It was, no, you got us. You helped us get to this point. You're coming on the bus. Mm-hmm. You're coming in the room. We had to sit off to the side because the Wellesley Applejacks fans were just about as bad as Mount Bridges fans.
Right.
The other team. So, but yeah, and it was a hell of an experience for sure.
Yeah. And did you ever play against, because I noticed here when I was doing some of the research, did you ever play any crossover games against teams like Seaforth and Wellesley at that time? I know that Thamesford was in your Thomas division and Lucan was in the division, but in the same conference, or sorry, another division, but in the same conference. Did you ever play those teams throughout the season, or did you just play Port Stanley, Thamesford, and Belmont the entire time?
We played everybody in the YEC conference.
Oh, okay.
Kind of set up as the way it was in the East and the West in the NHL, where you play your conference or your division 4 times and you play the other division in your conference twice. But we never played or never saw any of the other teams from the other conference. It was all, the coaching staff, when they got to the finals, anytime we weren't playing or practicing, they were up watching Wellesley or they were up watching Hagersville.
Right. Okay. And did you ever, even through that, even though you might not have played, could you pinpoint, a couple of moments about the experience about watching a final again with the Bulldogs and the Applejacks during that run?
The building, didn't matter where we were, was absolutely electric. We had obviously the bus for the players and the coaches and the trainers, but there was also a bus that went up with the fans.
Oh, that's awesome.
Not only was it, 500-600 people from Wellesley coming out to watch the game, you had a full busload of Mount Bridges fans that were just as nuts as Wellesley fans.
Right.
There was no intermingling in between. Like Wellesley was on one side, Bridges was on the other, and that's how the fans stayed, because I would imagine some of them might have ended up in a fight, and everything else. But yeah, it was, at the time, I'd never watched an NHL game, never really went to an OHL game. It rivaled that on TV for me personally, sitting there watching it,
right.
Electricity in the building, the noise, just the whole energy of it was just unreal.
That'd be an unreal experience. That's so cool. And now we're shifting away a little bit more from the Bulldogs. And anyone who's ever played, junior or semi-pro or even professionally, usually and eventually there comes a time where you have to have a life outside of hockey, and hockey unfortunately does, at least playing wise, stops. And that can be both a positive and a negative thing for a player, or anyone of any kind playing any sport. After your time with the Bulldogs, how did you transition yourself, out of the game, and what are you up to now?
Transitioning out of the game was actually really difficult. After my overage year, I felt a bit lost when it came to going into the workforce. I didn't find anything that really interested me. Work at a job for a couple of months and go, man, I'll stop showing up. Go find something else. And I actually ended up playing Senior A with the Thedford Dirty Dogs, which, funny enough, same style of logo, just different colors. Played that for a year, and then of course being an adult kind of got in the way, and not that drive was a lot further than the 5-minute walk down the road to Mount Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of stepped away from hockey altogether, got into doing job here, job there, temp job here, temp job there, because I put every egg that I had in a basket for playing pro hockey, and didn't really look into the university or college route. So then, lucky enough, one of the members of the Mount Bridges executive committee when I played was working for Burnbrae Farms. Said, my name, see if you can get in. It ended up that my dad's best friend was also a driver there. So I put in my resume there, worked my way up. Now the head shipper there, working full time all the way through the pandemic. Lots of hours, lots of work. And then averaging about 55, 60 hours a week during the beginning of the pandemic. I was starting to wear down.
Right.
And I went, well, I need to try something. I need to try something different. I need to outlet. My opinionated self needs to say something.
Right.
And that's actually when I started the podcast, which was, tough sledding to start, getting guests, getting my thought process kind of sorted away and what I wanted to do with it. And, that's been going on now since July, I do believe.
Okay.
While working full time. And then, I had Andy on, and he had mentioned that you guys were doing this. And without question, I went, for sure, I'm on. You let me know.
That's awesome. Well, and we appreciate having you on. Like I said in the pre-show, this was something that we kind of envisioned that we'd hope would happen, is that it would drum up some excitement from past Bulldogs, and you guys be able to come on and tell your stories. When you were transitioning out of the game, did you find that there were many outlets for you to kind of access, or were you more or less, left up to your own devices to kind of sort your way through and your pathway through the next stages of your life?
Of course, I had family, friends, people that had been through it already. Actually touched base with a couple of guys that I had played with when I was 14 and 15, who had been out of the league for 3 and 4 and 5 years, and just said, like, what do you do? Like, I'm lost.
Right.
It's almost like slipping into a depression where it's, you've been playing hockey your entire life, and then all of a sudden it's just ripped out of your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And they helped me out a little bit that way, just kind of, hey, go out and play pickup. Hey, go out and, see the guys you used to play with. Go out for drinks. Go out for dinners. Keep in touch, because if not, you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Well, no, that's good. It's really interesting, Joey, that you say that. I found myself in a very similar situation when I stopped playing as well. I was going to Western at the time, and, I didn't really even know if I was in the right program. I didn't really know. I think what the biggest shock was, I didn't really know how to navigate this, was the amount of time. I was very used to, as many hockey people are, or whoever's played a competitive sport. You're so structured in your ways. You go to school, and then you go to the gym, and then you go play hockey or soccer or baseball, whatever it was.
Yep.
Well, now you just go to school, or now you just work, and you think to yourself, I don't know what to do. I don't really know how to integrate with the rest of society. It's actually quite hard. Something too that I've definitely struggled with. And I played my last meaningful hockey game, almost 10 years ago. So that's something that, it's tough, but it's really good to talk about it. I've learned that it's good to talk about it, and it's good to talk to other players like yourself who have played or are playing. And the ones that are playing, I would definitely say, like, have a plan in place, talk to people early as possible, early and often, so that it's because eventually the transition out of hockey is going to happen. But you need to have that sort of a smoothing process where it's not so jagged, maybe, as yourself or myself.
Yeah, for sure. Like with talking earlier about the politics of the game, there's how many junior C, junior B teams, and there's only, how many OHL teams.
Right.
Well, of those OHL teams, you've got the Western League, the Q, the States, overseas. Like, there's only 31 NHL teams, 26 bodies, not, which nobody ever tells you when you're a kid, is the amount of work that you need to put in to get to that point, and it's still a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Be the best player on the ice your entire career and never even get a hint at the show. And, that was one thing, as I said, like, I put all those eggs in one basket, and when it didn't happen for me, it was, a kick in the teeth going, well, what do I do?
Right.
And that would be my biggest thing, to tell some of the players that are playing for the Bulldogs now, or even looking to come in at a younger age, is, the Bulldogs are important. Hockey's important, but it's not everything.
Right.
Take those lessons you learn, take those skills that you have from playing a team sport. And as you said, like, it's not even just hockey, it's any team sport, and look to transition that into the real world, into the adult life. And, like you had said, talking with Andy, that the relationships you build during hockey, they never end.
No, they don't. It's really cool too. Like, I think you had alluded to in the pre-show, like, you could almost pick up where you left off with certain guys that you slummed with in the dressing room, or, after a game or before a game or during a bag skate at practice. It's incredible, the hockey community and the outreach that is actually there. Sometimes you just have to go looking for it, but it is there, which is really cool. And that's something that, something beyond the pound, I'm hoping can generate through something like this, where players and executives and coaches of the past, such a storied franchise since 1975, can come on and kind of, tell their stories like you have here. With regards to your podcast, what are the goals for your podcast going forward? I mean, it's really cool. You get a really different breadth of people doing so many different things. What's kind of the scope for you going forward in your podcast ventures, Joey?
Well, I'd love to say, make the Joe Rogan money, make the Andrew Schultz money, but
that'd be awesome.
Well, yeah, that's what everybody strives for. But in all honesty, I think it was episode 3, I put it on there because a lot of people were asking me, well, why'd you start a podcast? So I decided to do an episode on it. But the long and the short of it is, my stepdaughter's 16 years old, and she's coming and going, well, I like the show Grey's Anatomy. I'm going to be a nurse. Well, okay, great. Do you know what you have to do to become a nurse?
Right.
So, my stepson, he's 9, and, he told me one day he wanted to be a YouTuber. So, okay, great. I got the cameras. Let's sit in front of the camera and let's, we'll play a game.
Right.
No. Well, that's kind of where it spurred for doing the show and kind of streamlining it, is when you and I were growing up, our parents would come in on career day and say, I'm a fireman. I get to slide up and down the pole. I get to fight fires. It's awesome. But nobody gets to hear, my grandfather was a fireman, and in Delaware, a volunteer fireman. And he was telling me, to this day, a kid getting trapped down in the well still haunts him.
Right.
The police officers that, go to a call and they get shot because that guy's got a warrant out for his arrest and doesn't want to get caught. You don't hear the negative side of things.
Okay.
And that's what, with the podcast, what I wanted to do is give everybody all the tools, all the information, same thing as a coach would playing junior.
Right.
Here are the tools. Do with it what you want. You can listen to me and, go through, or you can take all the tools I have and turn your back on it and do it on your own. Either way, you have all the information in front of you. make the proper decision for you. Like, not everybody's going to want to be a podcaster. Not everybody's going to want to be a professional hockey player. Mm-hmm. So the more guests I get on, the more of a vast, career base that they can draw from. It could help that kid turn into an entrepreneur or turn into the next basketball player.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So it's essentially laying out, or trying to lay out, I guess, like the ground,
mm-hmm.
at a ground level, like what needs to occur for you to get to that, insert position here.
Yeah, exactly. When it comes to the animal trainer that I just had on recently, she had said that she's always been good with animals, but she was terrible at public speaking.
Okay.
Well, she's done it long enough now that, if you were to watch that episode or listen to that episode, it doesn't sound like anything's out of the ordinary. But she said in the interview that the first 2-3 times she had to have her sister there because she was just petrified of speaking in front of people.
Right.
Had Brandon on, and he broke his leg playing AAA, or actually playing roller hockey, and thought he'd never play the game again.
Mm-hmm.
And all the negatives that he had to break through, and all the stereotypes and all that he broke through to get over and play overseas and in Europe and, in the AHL, way further than I ever got. And I was the one that, when he played for Lucan, used to crack him in the ankles every time he skated by.
That's awesome, though. So you're gaining like an educational
mm-hmm.
tool by listening to your show, which honestly, you know what, 10 years ago, if you were doing your podcast, I think that would have been really great, because I was super confused as to what I was going to do for the next, however many years I'm on this earth. So that's really cool, Joey. And I got to say, man, today has been an absolute blast, from going from your hockey story to life, and whatever, happens beyond. I wish you the best of luck. And I hope that when we do get back to our pre-pandemic routines, I really hope to see you around at the Tri-Township Arena. And thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me here today, Joey. This has been phenomenal.
Hey, thanks for having me on. And after this pandemic ends up finishing off, or we get into some type of a routine, you'll see me back in that rink. Because, as I said, pre-show, having Andy on my show and then watching the one that you had with him, it sparked that fire back in me that, was lost at 22, 23, 24 years old.
Right. Well, that's good to hear, man. And when things get back to normal, we'll crash courses at the Tri. Not a problem at all.
Sure.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.